Keeps you. Okay, new computer. New computer this week. So I had some issues setting up the stream. Testing, 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 test, test. Okay. So new computer. It's always new computer. It's always good to, life throws surprises at you, and you gotta be ready for that type of stuff. So it's always good to have backups of your stuff. Just period. Um, it's good to have backups for your stuff, and as an engineer, it's a surprise. And so I actually lost my secret key. I didn't get to back that up, or rather, yeah, I didn't back it up. I have this nasty habit of not always backing up my stuff every day, so I think I lost that key. But luckily, it wasn't like too important. I was just setting up certain environments. I think so. I haven't thought too much about what exactly I'm gonna do. So the format of this channel is usually, I don't really want to invest too much time editing stuff, so I'm just gonna wing stuff and just show what I'm doing anyway, within reason. And so actually I actually have something that might be more interesting this week to start off with. And so I published this blog post, and I'm pretty proud of it. It sort of has this odd twist to it where, I set up, it sort of has this odd twist where I'm setting up Bitcoin and, I'm setting up Bitcoin and on an OS X device, but I had this odd requirement where I wanted to run it on a secondary disk. And I actually don't have that machine anymore. That one actually died. I gotta send it to a repair shop. And this new machine that I'm on right now, that I'm live streaming from, actually only has one disk, and it's actually quite small. So I don't have the sort of 200 to 300 gigabytes of disk space you need to run a full Bitcoin node. So I think I'm gonna actually demonstrate how to run a full Bitcoin, a SPV node, which is the light version of the Bitcoin node, where you can still do a lot of useful things, but you don't have to actually store 300 gigabytes. It's more like 250, but it'll get to 300 gigabytes eventually, and I don't really want to update this blog post constantly, so I'm just gonna say it's 300 gigabytes. If you run the light version, the requirements are much smaller. I think it's something like maybe, I don't know, but I think it's like 20 gigabytes. So that is something that I could run on this machine. So I think I'm gonna lead with that, and then after that, sort of dip into running a Django, or setting up this Django application running raw locally. So I don't think this session is gonna have any sort of cloud element to it. I'm just going to be developing Django locally later. And we'll see how long it takes to figure this out. I'm hoping it won't take too long. So let's jump into it. Basically, I already had it open. I'm gonna put you over here. So I already had this open. Basically, we're gonna, well, before I do that, I was in the middle of renaming the thing. So we're gonna do running or installing light Bitcoin node on OS X and Django development. So that's very clickbaity. I think, I don't know if these stick right away, but who knows. We'll see. Hopefully it does take effect immediately, because I know some folks find the live, find this stream under the live thing. Yeah, let me know if you can't hear me, if I'm mumbling. I don't want to constantly look at this. It'd be nice if I could figure out how to just get a little microphone indicator in the lower right corner, but I don't have that, so I don't know what that's doing. Looks fine. I just want to see if the stream like died right there. Okay, it looks like it's fine. Anyway, so you clone this thing. Let's clone it. It's a new machine. Previous owner was called Ethan. I haven't changed the user, the name of the machine. That's the name of the machine. Right, so git clone the thing. Get the repo URL. Git clone repo URL. I don't think that matters. Yeah, if you have any questions, it'd be great if I could get a notification, because I don't want to monitor this thing, and longer term I'll figure something else out, some other solution. Let's see, so we're git cloning, and I'm downloading the Bitcoin source code, and let's see, we're cloning. It's gonna make a directory Bitcoin. I usually always have a programming directory where I put my programs, my software development stuff in, and it's usually under my home directory. And so git clone basically made a directory called Bitcoin, and we have the Bitcoin source code in there. And so yeah, I'm gonna do like a sanity check. I'm just gonna like pretend that I found this article and I want to sort of follow along. And this will be a good opportunity. So main thing, I want to sort of get the instructions for just running it in the light mode, because that's something I want to do just for my own benefit and for yours and for your entertainment. And I might add that as like an extra section down here. It's like, oh yeah, you know, if you want to run SPV or the light Bitcoin version, do this instead. But in the meantime, so we're gonna autogen. Actually, this might take a long time. Autoconf first. Please install auto configuration. I don't know what that means. I've also been like this whole week I've been like doing the boring stuff like setting up this computer, installing Python and all that stuff. It's not, you just gotta do it. Oh, it sucks. Please install AutoConf first. Maybe that. Automake. Rip tool. So all this stuff is, if you ever done like C programming, it's much lower level than Python or Ruby or JavaScript, and you need these sort of, they call it a tool chain, which is basically like all these libraries just to make a piece of software. Like not even writing it, because writing it is a full-time job, but getting it running on different machines is it takes some time as well. So we run AutoGen, which is a shell script that the Bitcoin source code ships with. So I'm not sure if there's like, in Windows programming, in Windows world, it's very common to download an executable, a .exe, and you would just download that, double click it, and install it on your machine. And in OS X and Mac world, we have something similar. They're called DMGs, .dmg files, and those just allow you to install software, and it's already pre-compiled. It's already compiled for you. For this though, I mean, I haven't even looked, but I'm basically the instructions that I came up with, sort of this walkthrough, is a much more condensed and specific presentation of the information that I got from the book Mastering Bitcoin. And I'm just gonna plug a website that I've made, cagonewyorkcity.com, and I have this resources thing. Shameless self-promotion, but if you... Oh wait, no, there's nothing... Anyway, disregard that. That's not a Bitcoin-related group. Mastering Bitcoin. But do check out this website if you're curious about data science. Mastering Bitcoin. Here. Yeah. I finished this today-ish. I want to read the appendices, but actually I did actually finish the last chapter today. And I think chapter 2 goes over into how to install Bitcoin from source. And so basically I was going through it and I was running into walls when it came to installing Bitcoin on my OS X machine and on a secondary disk. So that's what sort of motivated this blog post. And yeah, I guess that's just some background information on how I came up with this stuff. Sorry about that. So yeah, so we've auto-genned the source code, and now we're configuring it. We'll see if... So compiling the source code can be very time consuming, so I'm not sure. We'll see if... We'll just see what happens, because if it does get stuck compiling for something like 10 minutes, I don't think that's very entertaining or educational. And make usually compiles an application, so let's try it. No target specified and no make file found. We can read... Wait, where are we? That would be so funny if my instructions are out of date. Make. Automated testing. Oh. Hmm. I'm looking for the install instructions from Bitcoin. Make. It'd be so funny if it actually turns out to take like an hour to install this thing, but hopefully. What is this? Maybe update install landing redirection notice for build instructions. Yeah, this is recent. October 5th? No, that's not recent. Um, I'm wondering if you're not meant to install this way. I mean, unless make sudo make install. We did autogen, we did configure, we did make. No target specified, no make file found. I mean, there's some make files in here, but they have an extension. Oh, there's an install MD. Building Bitcoin. Doc build. Okay. Oh, I didn't note when I started. When did I start? 20 minutes ago. So I started at 11:40. 11:40. Let's see if we can go to 12:40. Okay. I have a pen and paper. So there's a doc build OSX. So we got this, but I kind of want to read it on GitHub because I think it's a little easier to read here than in the terminal. The built-in one is located. Okay, that's the terminal preparation. Maybe, yeah. Maybe I need all this stuff. Maybe I should add that. If you want to build the disk image, do that. It's recommended to use Berkeley DB. Clone that. Run this. run this. It is recommended to use Berkeley DB. If you have to build it yourself, you can use blah. I must have overlooked that when writing the blog post. Build it. So those are prerequisites, I guess. Yeah, preparation. DB, if you have to build it. Build Bitcoin Core. Build Bitcoin Core. And I think from here, it's pretty much what I got. So, okay, hopefully... Okay. We'll see. So this is installing these people. I'm pretty happy with this computer. I'm pretty happy with this computer. It's a, I think, mid 2012 Retina MacBook Pro. What I really had my heart set on was the i7, which is sort of the more heavy duty CPU. So i3 is the low end, i5 is standard mid-range, and i7 is a high range. And just as a developer, that was very important to me. I don't know if this one has 4 cores. Let's find out. I don't know if this can tell me. I don't know how to determine that, honestly. But I think it has 4 cores, and that's really nice. You know, the difference between 4 cores and a dual core, your average user won't notice, but a super user may, especially if you're running your web application infrastructure locally, which you do want to do. It's very common to want to run your web application infrastructure locally and also do, like, you know, things like this. I might have Photoshop open, I might have a simulator open, I might have a web browser with several tabs open. So I feel like I do notice the difference between a quad core and a dual core, but I'm not a common user. Don't think that matters. You know, maxed out the RAM. Actually, the motherboard doesn't support more than 16 gigabytes. So I'm gonna have to deal with that. I think I could make use of 32, but 16 gigabytes is not bad. We see here that I guess I'm hovering at around almost half. I'm not really running a web application infrastructure locally, at least not yet. You know, I might, or with Docker, you could be running Kubernetes, and you know, a web application might have worker nodes. You might have a database. You might be running multiple databases like this for whatever reason. You might be running a queue server, you know, all kinds of stuff. So we do use it. I'm gonna exit out of this. So okay, prereqs installed. Don't care for the DMG, the OS X version of EXEs. Do care about setting up the database. So Berkeley DB is I think it was one of the first open source databases. Don't quote me on that, but it's been around for a while, and it was written by some folks out of Berkeley. you have to think about the folks that sort of came up with the idea of a database. They they ended up, this stuff comes from academia. They ended up implementing this stuff themselves. I think it started circa right around the same time that Oracle started, and it's still pretty widely used. But even so, like I had only heard about it. Really, I never really used it for a web application, and I did find it a little bit funny that it is the database of choice for Bitcoin. But I think that's probably just because of its age. Um, Similarly, Bitcoin is written in C++, and that's like, that's like graybeard stuff. That's low level, like no bullshit. So I don't really come from that world. I feel like that was probably a generation before me. Um, but basically, I get the impression that the people that work on Bitcoin are really hardcore. So I would have probably picked something like Postgres, but that's probably the wrong tool for this. Um, so that's installing Berkeley DB. You only need Berkeley DB if the wallet is enabled. But the thing is, I don't want to like figure out how to disable it because I feel like that takes away valuable time, and I'm live streaming. So I'm tempted to, because I didn't do the prerequisites, I'm tempted to do this. I'm tempted to do it again, and hopefully it's re-entrant, meaning that if I run the command twice, or no, I think that's the wrong term. Idempotent means that if you do the same action twice or many times, you get the same effect, and that's pretty important. So I'm hoping that doing this stuff will not hurt if I run it again. And I don't know. That was just a judgment call. I could have also just tried to run make and see if it would have ran correctly the second time around. So while that's configuring, I would like to point out that I'm a big fan of sort of putting things side by side. So I routinely, when I'm following instructions that suggests that you should, maybe program something or execute commands in the terminal, I'm a big fan of setting the tutorial on one side, left or right, and then putting where you're meant to do the activity right next to it. And I feel like just the context switching is much lighter that way. Okay, so we didn't see the same error. So it's making. Now it's compiling. Now it's compiling. And I don't know if you can hear my fans, but my fans are going to start winding up, and now the computer is going to be doing some really heavy processing. Let's see what htop says. I'm not super experienced with this tool. I kind of want to learn it more. So it's similar to, in Windows there would be the task manager, and on OS X there's a GUI task manager, but they call it activity monitor. And I'm more familiar with this, but I kind of want to use the htop more, just to just to stay in the terminal more. I like hanging out in terminal land. And we see here that clang is using 100% of the CPU. Well, it was. Maybe we're done compiling. No, we're not. Clang is the process that's compiling. That's compiling Bitcoin, and it seems to be reaching 100%. The CPU load is around here. If we had a quad core and we were pegging or maxing out one core, the CPU load would be at about 25%. I'm a little bit surprised because I could have sworn that we would have seen 100% utilization, and we probably would have seen either 4 Clang processes at the top right here at 100%, or 1 Clang, and then the CPU would have been like 350% for a while until this finished compiling. So 220. I'm not sure. This could take a while. This could take a while to compile. It's not uncommon to have compilations. I mean, you know, back in the, even still, you could have a compiling job that could take 24 hours. Like, it's just, you're compiling a huge binary. It's not fun. It's not fun, but it's a reality when you're developing binaries. So like if you're writing C, C++, if you're writing Rust, I think definitely if you're writing Go, that stuff needs to be compiled to the target architecture. It's not fun. Okay, now it seems to be utilizing another core for a little bit. What could I do in the meantime? Stream health. That would be funny if the compilation affects the stream, the ability for the computer to stream. Let's see. So that's going to have some extra prerequisites. Make may take a long time. I guess I could note that. It may take 5 minutes to compile. Okay, maybe I'll do a little bit of Django. Over here, I'm trying to run the Django API locally. Since this is a new machine, I've been sort of setting it up. What's that put over there? I need to install GeoDjango, which is for geolocation. I'm using GeoDjango in this API. And I haven't installed GDAL. I'm wondering if I documented some of this geo. To enable GDAL, no. I think I might be on my own with this. Django core exceptions, improperly configured, cannot find GDAL library. So I think that's straightforward to fix. Let's check up on the Bitcoin compiling. So this is GeoDjango installation stuff. GeoDjango installation, Python, spatial database, which I think is just you pop into Postgres and run it, tell it to create an extension. Geospatial libraries, database installation, installing Postgres, or maybe not. Maybe you need more. Maybe you need to do more than that. Okay, so I'm using Postgres app this time around. Last time, on my last machine, I was administrating Postgres locally, or without the GUI. This time around, I decided to give the GUI a shot, and so far it's working fine. I like the fact that there's a GUI to switch between database versions, engine versions. That I feel like could be useful if for whatever reason I wanted to, if for whatever reason I wanted to have Postgres, different versions of Postgres running, at the same time, installed on the machine and running at the same time is a little bit confusing without the GUI, I thought. So I'm giving it a shot. It's working pretty good so far. So it looks like Postgres.app comes with PostGIS extension. We're also going to need to have the GDAL library available. So brew update. It's good practice always. Brew update, brew install. We're gonna do GDAL and libgeoepi. Let's check in on our Bitcoin. Looks like it's still compiling. So yeah, basically I'm setting up GeoDjango on a new laptop. This should probably take less time than compiling Bitcoin. Okay, and so we can go ahead and read ahead. It's pretty good practice to read ahead. And so Postgres.app is a standalone PostgreSQL server that includes the PostGIS extension. You will also need to install GDAL and libgeoip with Homebrew. Doing that. After installing Postgres.app, add the following to your bash profile so you can run the package's programs from the command line. Okay, I haven't done that. Replace x.y with the version of PostgreSQL in the Postgres app you installed. So I think I'm going to go with PostgreSQL 11. I don't think I'm using anything that's incompatible between them, and this is a new API, so I'm leaning towards 11, but really it's about what Heroku will run, because I'm going to be running this on Heroku. Don't care. Anyway, don't care right now. 11. Replace 10.y with the version in Postgres app you installed. Da, da, da. You can check if the path is set up correctly by typing which pSQL at a terminal prompt. What do I see now? Version's latest. So we installed the prerequisites for GeoDjango. I'm going to go ahead and update my bash profile as they suggest. Bash profile, homebrew in Python, path configuration, Geo, rather, it's more like Postgres. Postgres, terminal configuration. Well, Postgres map, Postgres.app, contents to path to terminal. And that's going to be something like export path equal. I want it to be consistent with what I already have. I'm gonna try to make it consistent by flipping these, and we'll double check if it behaves good enough. If it doesn't, we'll flip it like the documentation says. But I just have a feeling that this might be better. And so, you know, the instructions aren't magic. There's nothing magical about them. You can read them. Basically, we are sort of adding something to the path. And the path is an environment variable that the terminal uses to find binaries. And so we're basically concatenating another directory that the terminal should look at, search for binaries. When you put in, you know, ls, it actually behind the scenes the terminal goes through several directories, several folders on the file system to find the binary. And so similarly, we want to sort of add another directory so that when we do which pSQL, it'll find a specific version. I guess this is adding a specific version because we already have the latest one properly mapped. You know what, now that I think about it, maybe we don't need this, because we're just going to be adding like a specific one versus the generic one, and I guess we're fine. But just out of curiosity, I want to see what's in there. So we know that we have contents versions latest in pSQL. I'm wondering if we see 10 and 11. Yeah, we see 9.5, 9.6, 10, 11. If we expand this, just for the benefit of some lesser experienced folks, if you do list ls command with the -l, you'll get a longer version of the output. And depending on your settings, you might have this sort of, I just want to compare them. Well, ls that, ls this way, ls that, ls on. Okay, just I wanted to compare it for your benefit. You might have, depending on your settings, you might have this sort of color coding that helps. It helps for, in this situation, it sort of gave me a hint that this is a symbolic link. And so basically latest is sort of like an alias to 11. And that could be useful. So if you're writing other software that just always wants to find the latest version of Postgres, this sort of alias is useful. So if whenever Postgres 12 comes out, we can just re-alias latest to 12, and and that and it'll be the latest. So just throwing that out there. Basically, when we do which p-SQL, we get the version 11 now in November 2018, but in the future it will be 12, 13, 14, stuff like that. So I actually think that this is set up fine, and if it's broken later, we'll revisit this, but I don't really want to add stuff to my profile. I saved that. Okay, I guess that's fine. That was me adding 3.7, Python 3.7 for whatever reason. That's fine. That is fine. So, looks like Bitcoin is still compiling. I guess I'm not using, oops. Yeah, Bitcoin's still compiling. This is Bitcoin compiling. Let's see, so I didn't use Homebrew. Python, although macOS comes with Python, so I've already set up Python earlier this week. I'm wondering if I need this. GeoDjango, Windows, Postgres. Python, Django, spatial database, installing. Yeah, now I'm hearing the laptop fans crank up. No. Okay, we're an hour in. Let's see if we do 2 hours. Let's see what can we get done in 2 hours. So I'm gonna shoot for 140 because I'm not tired. Spatial database. Live chat. Python and Django. Special libraries. So I got Python, I got Django, I got a spatial database, Postgres with Postgres. I might need to install these geospatial libs. I have a sense that that's already installed. And Postgres, I think, comes with Postgres.app. So I feel like these are interchangeable, so I think if I did the Postgres version, I don't need the King Chaos packages. Here's a wild out idea. Maybe if I just try to run the server. Okay, so this is a different version. So okay, that installing GDAW with brew was sufficient to get past that complaint. And now we have a different complaint about the Django API's database hasn't been created yet. So good. We're making progress. I need to revise the installation instructions because I'm no longer using Google Cloud. So I'm just gonna throw these out. For local development, we're gonna need brew install Postgres. Maybe depends. For local dev, development, there's like two modes. There's like if you're using Postgres.app, we're gonna be doing some stuff, and if we are, you know, homebrew Postgres, we're gonna do something like that, because Postgres.app already comes with that stuff. But we do, and this might be like a common thing, that something that needs to be run for both of them, but the GeoIP, I think it is a common thing. Install spatial software. Right, Postgres.app. I mean, it's my project, so no. We might have some people that don't like the thing. Note the GUI ships with Postgres. We don't need to do anything like that. Homebrew Postgres is going to be like that. Maybe to get the to set up the database, we can just do this. No. Okay, so I did have some instructions for local development, and I'm seeing here that we would want to sort of run this stuff in there. Add user in pSQL. So we're in pSQL. We're going to go ahead and create database. Create. I don't think I need to create a user. not locally. Maybe it'll work now. Maybe if it just exists. No changes. PM run server. Interesting. Okay, so that was enough. So yeah, I think that was for Cloud SQL. We needed to sort of set up another user. So I'm not gonna put that in the directions. Basically, provision database. In pSQL. So basically, you know, get into the database, create a database, and then you're sort of fine. Alter user, nope. So then you activate the environment and you run the server, and that's running. Make migrations, run migrations is the other one. So that's inaccurate. Migrate. So we run the migrations. How's the Bitcoin? Still compiling. I'm not using this. Yeah, still compiling. Okay, so, and then now we can run the server. Run the Django app. Let's see. Okay. That wasn't as hard as I thought. Just had some random GeoDjango error. Okay, so this is the API. Seems to be working. There's no user. We can make a super user. Let's create super user. Or yeah, we need to be inside of the virtual environment. Anyway, create super user. Let's call it Harry. Harry at Gmail. So, sorry to the actual Harry at Gmail. It's not like I'm gonna be sending out emails with this API, but that person probably gets lots of emails. I think I'm just gonna call it something. Email. So I'm writing these super user credentials just on a piece of paper. Off screen. And So after you create a super user with the Django command, you can use it. The Django admin panel by default is at /admin. I think it's a good idea to change that in a production environment. Like if you actually deploy a Django application to the internet, you should probably not have the admin panel available at /admin, because that's where a malicious actor could look for it. And yeah. Okay, so we created the user. And the reason I wanted to is because this form sort of allows you to create tokens, and and you associate them with users. So my data model is like that, where I have a token entity and I wanted to associate tokens with users. So the first thing that this form, this web page does is it searches over all of the users in the database and populates it into this little form, so that I can go ahead and create new tokens this way. And now I have tokens here. This is more just like a sanity check. I'm not 100% clear on what I want or if I even want the Django application to serve anything. That's sort of, I haven't really ironed out those details. It's very common to have an API that only speaks JSON, and then you have like a thick client, like a very heavy web application in React or Vue, and similarly you could have a very heavy native phone app that is written in something like Swift, Java for Android, Kotlin for Android, Swift for iOS. And for me, I'm using React Native in this project as for my thick client. I've also been hearing a lot about Google's Flutter as a pretty popular way to make phone apps. So that is roughly how that goes. So that is how you install GeoDjango. And I think Bitcoin is still compiling. No. Okay, we finished compiling Bitcoin. So hopefully that was interesting. Going back to installing Bitcoin. Let's see. So make, and then, or that compiled it, but now we install it. And I think you do want to do this as the super user. Installation should take nowhere near as long. It's curious that the CPU load isn't lower, but whatever. Don't need this. I think it's installed, so you should be able to do Bitcoin D. So that's Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin is running on this machine now. I'm gonna kill it. And one thing that I forgot to note in this blog post is where the actual, here I put it to do, where the actual default location is, and I'll be able to determine that right now, I think. I can just read this output. So sudo make install, we can start reading from here. Making install in source. This is installing it. libtool is installing it. Oh, okay. And then this is when we ran Bitcoin over here. And then when you start running Bitcoin, it orients itself. The process orients itself and tries to figure out what to do. And so it starts looking for a configuration file. And okay, so the default data directory is users, username. On OS X, the default data directory is users, username, library, application, support, Bitcoin. So I did want to note this, because when you have two disks, as I did, I wanted to use the secondary disk, so I wasn't using the default location. So I'm going to go ahead and note this. Here. Decide where you want to store the blockchain. I use block. The default location is this. Users, username. Okay. So basically, I need to make another set of instructions. Verify you can run Bitcoin D, as we did. This will also begin constructing the configuration files. In parentheses, if you are not using the default location, if you're not using the default location, specify the data location as an extra, as an argument. Bitcoin D, yeah. Okay. Decide where you want to store the blockchain. Verify you can run that. We did that. It'll start constructing that. Add a file. I think this we still need to do. So we're going to add a file. We're going to add a file there in the data directory. And that is over here. What do we call it? Library, application. Wow, my memory's so bad. Application support Bitcoin. Looks like there is no bitcoin.com. So I think it's safe to specify this. Bitcoin.com. And I think it's fine to specify, so data directory. I'm not going to specify data directory. You do want to specify t-index still. And that I detail it here. Basically, it allows you to look up any sort of transactions. But the default behavior is if you don't specify this, you can only look up transactions that this installation has done or is involved in. Specify an RPC user, which could be anything, but I don't really mention that in the tutorial. It can be anything, and don't do this like for your installation, but for this demo purpose, like I'm not going to be running this for a very long time. I'm going to probably change the password or something. Specify a password. So you do want to do this. You do, I think though, now right around here is where you need to figure out how to do the light client. So Bitcoin run SPV. Simple payment verifier. Simplified payment verification. Run node. Lightweight node. As I skim all of the reasons you should not run it, let's try to run it. Maybe we can be like elite hackers and figure it out just from the help. So we are in, this is the source, and we have something like Bitcoin D, and I wonder if there's a man page, and I wonder if there's something like this. What about simple light? So I'm literally reading all of the options. This is pretty educational. There's a lot of options. Nothing really. Maybe, oh well, is there help? Help. No. It looks like it just spits out the man page. Well, what's cool about Mastering Bitcoin too is that it was an open source book, so you can sort of read it online. And I know that the author, Antopoulos, I do want to pronounce his name correctly, Andreas Antonopoulos. they do show how to run it in the light version. Make. I think it's covered here. Light. Full. Prune. Reduce the disk space requirements to this many megabytes by deleting old blocks. Use this on a resource-constrained node that can't fit the full blockchain. We want to do this on this machine. Lots of space Bitcoin. Here we go. Sample configuration of a resource-constrained system shows a resource-constrained node running on a smaller server. DB cache. The size of the unspent transaction cache, output cache, the default is 300 megabytes. Interesting. I thought the default was something like 20 gigabytes. Increase this on high-end hardware and reduce the size on low-end hardware to save memory at the expense of slow disk I/O. Luckily for me, I have an SSD, so hopefully hopefully it's not an issue. It's funny how that linked to just some random thing. Once you've edited the configuration file and set the options that best represent your needs, you can test Bitcoin D with this configuration. Okay, print to console. That is one way to test it. Get blockchain info. That is another thing I wanted to do, which was show the lightweight way to test the binary. You can do print to console. And okay, so we want to sort of use this configuration. Vim, where was I? I do think you want to use txid1. Or maybe tx index is for the full chain. Transaction database index and tx index option. By default, Bitcoin Core builds a database containing only the transactions related to the user's wallet. If you want to be able to access any transaction with commands like get raw transaction, you need to configure the Bitcoin Core. You need to configure Bitcoin Core to build a complete transaction index, which can be achieved with the tx index option. Set tx index equal 1 in the Bitcoin Core configuration file. If you don't set this option at first and later set it to full indexing, you need to restart Bitcoin D with the reindex option and wait for it to rebuild the index. So it sounds like I need this whether I'm running a full node or a light node, because I do want to be able to look at any transaction. So let's see. I'm going to go with tx index equals 1. Alert notify, I don't have that. That's sort of to get like either an email or maybe a notification. In OS X you can get a notification in the upper right hand corner. I'm not going to do that. I am going to go with max connections. That might be for like running a lightweight node like on an embedded device, like on a Raspberry Pi. Prune 5000 sounds fine. Let's go over it. Prune 5000 reduces the disk space requirements to this many megabytes. So that would say to use 5 gigabytes, which is fine. Okay, 5 gigabytes of blockchain, and over for DB cache, we're gonna probably use 300 megabytes of DB cache, which is for unspent transactions. I don't plan on doing too many transactions with this install, so I don't think this one matters as much. It does sound like the prune one is pretty much specifying how much disk we want to give Bitcoin. DB cache 150. So I guess that's for if you want it to go lower than the default. Whatever, I just want to stick to the default, and I'm not that resource constrained. Max receive buffer 2500. Max send buffer 500. What do these do? Max receive, max send buffer. Limit per connection memory buffer to this many multiples of 1000 bytes. Use on memory constrained nodes. I'm not really memory constrained, but whatever. Just gonna put that out there. And so I need to add probably like an alternative configuration, which I won't do now. But I'll put a to do. Highlight YAML to do show alternative conf for lightweight node. I'm gonna link to this. Okay. Right, so now we have a lightweight configuration, and yes, then we daemonize the Bitcoin. And this is very OSX specific, so OSX has its own sort of process and application starting service that makes certain applications run when you turn on the computer, and it's not very common. It's called launch control. So that's that was kind of like why I wanted to make this blog post, is because like there's just not, it's much more common to run a Bitcoin node on Linux and use a different sort of helper process thing. I think it's called systemd. OSX doesn't have that. So here's how you do it. Copy the bitcoind.plist. And we're going to copy it to where all of the launch control applications that want to be controlled by launch control register themselves. So we're going to copy that. If you're not using the default data location, add an extra line in the plist. We don't need to do that. We're using the default. Load the service. Launch control load. Start the service. Oh, I didn't type that correctly. I think that's probably start. Load the service. Start the service. Verify the service. Maybe we do need to start it. So I'm not a launch control expert, if you haven't noticed. So there is load, bootstraps a service or directory of services. Then there would be start the service and list the service. Okay, so it looks like I need to debug this. That didn't work. Launch control list, and it spits out a lot of stuff, you see. So I'm gonna filter it down. Bitcoin D1, and that is the one I think is an error. So that's the status. And most of these are 0. I think 1 is error. If for whatever reason the service errors out, check blah, edit the config, and reload with launch control. Maybe I need to look at the config. What's in here? Okay, so Bitcoin D, user local bin Bitcoin D, run at load. Oh, okay, so yeah, so basically launch control tried to do this, I basically tried to mimic it, and when I run it, it errors out. Bitcoin Core version, blah, init parameter interaction, whitelist, force relay 1, setting error. Prune mode is incompatible with TX index. Mystery solved. That's why. That's why it was. That's why the book doesn't show TX index for the full and the simple. TX index won't run on a light node. It can only run on a full node. So, mystery solved. Implication is that if you don't have enough disk space for a full node, if you don't have at least 200 gigabytes, you won't be able to look up information on arbitrary transactions. That's the trade-off. So I'll just make a note of that in the blog post. I'll just add it as a note. Note if you choose to run a lightweight node, you cannot look up any Bitcoin. You can't look up arbitrary Bitcoin transaction info. That's the downside. So I'm just going to go ahead and purge that. So yeah, you can do, so that's a good sanity check in general. So like if your launch control processes are not working for some reason, you basically run the same thing that they're trying to run, and that's how you debug. So we load. Double check that we are running Bitcoin D, because I'm not 100% sure if that initially starts it. It looks like it doesn't. Let's try to start it. No. So it works when I run it. It doesn't work when launch control tries to run it. Oh, maybe unload. I did find that launch control was pretty finicky. And I did note how to reload things. Okay, verify it's running. If for whatever reason the service errors out, do that. Edit the config. Reload with unload. Unload it. And then load it. See if the service is running. Yes, it is. So I suspect that I don't need to use the start command. I think it's sufficient to load the service. Load and start the service. And I'm not sure if I should omit. Maybe I should just call it start. I don't know. Maybe it'll be it's somewhat educational to expose that. And that's it, folks. That is how you run a lightweight Bitcoin node on OS X. The other sanity check you can do, verify it's running doing that. You know, you could also verify it's running by doing, what was it? There's print to console, Bitcoin CLI. If you're not using the default location, you have to specify the install directory when using the commands. For example, Bitcoin D, print to console. There is here, blockchain info. That's like a command that you can use to as a sanity check. I forgot where I was going with that, but I think it's working. I think we're running a lightweight Bitcoin node on OS X now. So, right, unload it, start the service. So that's pretty cool. So with launch control, now it's registered so that whenever I restart the machine, it's gonna start this lightweight Bitcoin node. Once you have a full copy, oh, okay, so right, so verifying that it's running, right? So we can do just check if the process is there. The other way to, right, Bitcoin D. The other way to, maybe I should be more specific, because I just say that if there's 2 lines, and that's not the best way. Verify it's running. If you see 2 results, it's working. If you see verify it's running, run that. If you see an entry like this, I think we should have the full line. So I'm just truncating larger spaces with down to 2 because I feel like that looks better. So that's how you verify if it's running. The other way to verify is to run like a commonly used subcommand, I think is the name. So this will work basically if you do Bitcoin CLI with and you're using the other way to install it, which is with a specific data directory or a non-default data directory. You pass in the data directory, and the subcommand get raw transaction is looking for information on an arbitrary Bitcoin transaction. You can do that with a full node. If you have a to verify a lightweight node is working, you can try Bitcoin CLI. I'm just going to use the one that's in the book, which is get blockchain info. And yeah, so yeah, I was shooting for 140. I think this is a good point to sort of end it. Yeah, because we have it running. It's running. It's a lightweight node on an OS X machine, and that it's running. We can do Bitcoin CLI get blockchain info, and we see stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't have much experience with this, with actually what these utilities do, but I think it's installed. Thank you very much. Have a great Friday night. Hope you learned something. Hopefully it was interesting. It turned out to be mostly running Bitcoin on OS X, but I know that that's a pretty popular topic these days, and hopefully it was interesting. Basically we basically cloned Bitcoin source code, compiled it, installed it, configured it to start on computer startup, and we did it in the lightweight mode. We're not doing a full thing. Hey bro, can I do a song request please? I've been depressed lately, so could I request some songs please? It's not really the right sure, next time. Thanks for watching. This one's gonna be 140. Have a great Friday night. We basically went over installing Bitcoin on OS X in a lightweight mode, and we did a little bit about installing GeoDjango on OS X, very briefly. See you next week, where I'll be doing something else. Have a great weekend, have a great week.